And this is such an interesting story. Coming up, they were the most popular band in the world when they released this record. It became a #1 hit, and it made them even bigger. The irony here is that this #1 song was the band singing about getting replaced by up-and-coming artists and getting forgotten. Coming up next, one of the legendary songwriters tells us the anxiety and pressure the band was under, trying to maintain their top-of-the-charts status, and we'll find out if they remained on top from there or just faded away. Stories coming up next on Professor of Rock. Hey music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you remember wasting hundreds of quarters on Donkey Kong, Galaga, or Burger Time at the local arcade, you're going to enjoy this channel. Also pole position. Potent nostalgia 24/7, the stories from the legends. Make sure to subscribe below, click the big red button, click the bell so you always know when our stuff's coming out. Also, if you want more videos, other great benefits, click on our Patreon. That helps us keep it a daily channel, gets us more interviews. You become an honorary producer. So it's time for another edition of our series, Revelations, where artists and bands take us for a deep dive into their greatest songs and their greatest albums, details, stories, renderings of the recordings that you won't find anywhere else. That's a fact. Man, today's story and its corresponding interview, very, very interesting. You're going to like this. I think it speaks to artists in general. This band had forged their way to the top of the charts for the early part of the 70s to become arguably the most popular band in all of America. I mean, right there with Zeppelin and Floyd, and they likely crossed over to a wider demographic than either band overall. I'm, of course, talking about Eagles. The new kid in town. Don Henley, Glenn Frey, and co. They were coming off 2 straight #1 albums. One of these nights from 1975 had 3 top 5 hits on it. Take It to the Limit, Lion Eyes, and the title track, which hit #1 on the Hot 100. Then in 1976, they released their first greatest hits album. That would hit #1. It would go on to become the biggest selling record in American history. Almost 40 million copies sold in the US alone. That year, they were working on their next album, which felt like it might be their best yet. With a promising theme and the song Hotel California. They were poised for another big one. But as most artists who think too much, they had some anxiety of the fleeting, fickle nature of fame in the music business. Don Henley would remember that, actually. That's how he would phrase it. Where you been lately? They felt the pressure of staying on top with some of the up-and-comers that were kind of nipping at their heels, the rookies, you know, that were trying to take over. There's a new kid in town. They put this worry into a song that would hit #1. Talking about the classic 70s hit, New Kid in Town. Everybody loves him, don't they? Actually, it was J.D. Souther who initially wrote the chorus for this song. Everybody's talking about the new kid in town. The band, they thought it sounded great. They felt it could be a hit, but the song sat for about a year. And then later, Don Henley, Glenn Frey, and J.D. got together during the Hotel California session, and they finished it right then and there. A lot of people have speculated, who is the new kid in town? Who are they talking about? Was the band talking about a specific up-and-comer? You know, they were reticent about taking their place on the charts. Sing us a song, you're the piano man. Well, we're going to find out next from J.D., who breaks down the song. Some have speculated it was Billy Joel. I've also heard Bruce Springsteen. I've even heard Peter Frampton. They were all big back then. The lyrics are about being replaced by a new artist or band with lyrical references to phony friends who come around due to the band's fame, but these same friends will forget them when they're on their way down, when they're not as big.
So don't let them down.
Some have speculated they're also referencing fans here, leaving them for the hotter acts up and coming. Using the lyrics kind of metaphorically through, I think using a relationship as a metaphor. Don Henley even referenced this song in his first solo hit, Johnny Can't Read. J.D. Souther explains the band's process and thinking at the time coming up next in our exclusive interview. So let's get into it. As we go into this, I do want to thank our sponsor, Zenni Eyewear. Right now, you can get a complete pair of prescription glasses for less than the price of a vinyl record. I'm telling you, you design your own pair, your own features, and you can try them on virtually to see how you look before you buy them. Check it out by clicking on our link right here and to get the best price, the POR price right here. Here's the story. The Eagles, New Kid in Town.
You look in her eyes, the music begins to...
Well, New Kid in Town, it's a very clever song with a much deeper, more personal meaning than many might first think when they hear it. On the surface, it could be interpreted as a song about a kid starting all over again as a new kid at school, but my understanding is you started writing the chorus with New Kid in Town. Tell me about that.
I had the chorus written for a long time before I showed it to the guys, because I wrote it when they were kind of between albums. And we were using it as a rehearsal song in my band.
Hopeless romantics, here we go again.
And Jorge Calderon was in my band then. And I don't know if Joey Lala was playing percussion then or not, but the more we jam on it, the more Cuban it got. It sort of suffered from Desi Arnaz syndrome. And it was great, but I really had no idea what to do with the verses. And then when we had our pre-Hotel California meeting, what do you got? What do you got? What do you got? I don't know. What do you got? I threw that down, and Glenn just went, yeah, pick it up. There's our first single. Let's go with it. So we wrote a story for it.
After a while, you're looking the other way.
Well, I know it took a while before, like you said,
very long,
recorded.
Slow song. But we were pretty sure it was going to be the first single from Hotel California, so we didn't want to mess it up.
It's those restless hearts.
I read about that you guys had a collective fascination, you and Glenn and Don, with gunfire as an analogy and how it was used in the song.
Well, actually, Ned Doheny gave me a book for my birthday. I think that's where it came from. It was just all it was all about gunfighter gangs, but what it really was a photo gallery of dead outlaws, because it was common practice then to display the lawbreakers that you'd killed in the street, supposedly as a detriment to other potential lawbreakers. And we just thought it was a great analogy. Obviously, we were young guys, full of ourselves, and we loved the analogy of being gunfighters. And then we got this idea, rob the bank idea, and it played out perfectly. If you notice on the back cover, all the musicians are dead, and all the business guys are standing on the porch alive with guns. It's kind of like real life.
Very, very clever. Well, it also is about the fickle nature of fame and how fake friendships can be when you become a celebrity, especially a rock star at that time.
Yeah, it wasn't that the song New Kid in Town wasn't about anybody. I mean, it must have endured 100 questions about, oh, is this about Bruce? Is this about Billy Joel? He says, no, this is about four guys who are getting towards their late 20s and early 30s and going, shit, there's a whole bunch of young guys just like us coming up behind us, and they would sure like to bump us off.
The new kid in town.
So it wasn't a song about anything except our first intimations of age.
Yeah.
And that we wouldn't be the youngest, prettiest songwriters on the block forever.
It's that the quarter life crisis that we all go through in our 20s.
I suppose, yeah. I don't think I had my midlife crisis until I was 70. It's really tough to take at that point.
Became the third #1 single for the Eagles, and the second #1 that you were a huge part of.
To give me the best of your love.
You know, what's interesting about New Kid in Town is that with Hotel California, with that being such a landmark album, I mean, one of the biggest selling albums in American history. I think it's like the third, I think now. After
Greatest Hits is still the biggest selling album.
Yeah, they have the #1 and #3, two or three biggest ever.
Which is pretty good.
So calling them the American Beatles is not a stretch by any stretch of the imagination, but as far as in popularity and record sales and what these songs have meant to people. But it's interesting because Hotel California, the song, that's just a no-brainer. I mean, I don't know how anybody couldn't hear that song and say that's going to be one of the greatest songs of all time.
To the Hotel California.
And it's not something that you see, again, a lost art. When you put out a landmark album and you've got so many great songs like the Eagles did, here's going to be our first single. This is going to be our second single. The method of releasing the singles and keeping the album going over the course of the tour and everything like that. What was your thought about it being the first single? And what was your thought when we were hearing some of these songs off Hotel California?
Listen, I am, I think as their co-writer, I'm first single guy, you know, Heartache Tonight too. When it was time to do that album, it was like, okay, we need a hit.
Then it became this thing where they would release the rocker as the first single, and we can't do a ballad or a slower song until the second or third. And with the Eagles, it was like, we're just going to put out our best stuff. And we
obey none of those rules. Well, you put out what you think is best and what works, what seems to be working at that time, what you're the freshest on, but mainly just what the best thing you have is. That's what you owe. If you expect to be successful, that's what you got to deliver. I think the way everybody feels about any song that really resonates, you know, I think New Kid in Town was the same way. There were a lot of people like us that were just about to hit their 30s and going, shit, you know, we're not exactly little kids anymore.
Yeah.
And for us, it was just like, well, we knew when we were starting out, even though, for instance, here's a good example. David Crosby was like a dad to Glenn and I. He was like Uncle Dave. He was just a sweet guy. He would send over some of these little hippie girls to clean our house and cook for us and send us over pot. And he would take us around and he took us to a Roger McGuinn session one night, Jackson and I, because he wanted Jackson and I to play a couple of songs for Roger. And he said, you know, these are the new guys. We're the old guys. These are the new guys. I want you to hear some of their tunes. And Roger just talked about himself for 3 hours and how the Byrds needed him. And Crosby finally tried, you know. So we left, and he never cut a song of ours. But Cros was really like a dad to us, you know. He was really like Uncle Cros, man.
Just another new kid in town.
But I remember hitting an age where I felt like Crosby must have felt 10 years before, and thinking, oh shit, you know, yeah, these young guys come, these young gunslingers are coming to town too, and they want this job. And you know, will she still love her? I don't know. We're all going on the road.
Will she still love you?
Everybody except I don't know about Felder because I don't know him that well, but Jesus, Glenn, Zevon, Bonnie, most everybody I know except Don had 2 wives, the second of which was half their age. It just seems like it's the way it happened. You know?
Yeah, right.
Their lives kind of get divided into this first part where we're struggling really hard to make something, to do something. And then there's this other guy that sort of comes along after you've got the big house. And sometimes, I think sometimes it just happens that the wife or the girlfriend has, at that point, you've been gone on the road so much that she's had enough of it. I don't know. It's one of the things that can happen.
When you're not around.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah, New Kid in Town was a turning point of some kind. I don't know what exactly. You can never assess your own work very well, but it seemed like a turning point of some kind. Yeah. You know, there's this adolescent in you that you'd like to keep alive for as long as possible. But you have children, you have to separate yourself a little bit from that adolescent in order to help your adolescent child mature, you know. But I sort of feel like the protracted adolescence is just one of the it's one of the tag-alongs to show business, to a life in show business. You're going to be a little kid in some way for as long as you do it. And as a matter of fact, if you weren't, you probably wouldn't be successful at it, because all of this, even the stuff that we do, is a game of make-believe. It's nice to have the make-believe feel so real that you can taste the blood, you know. But it is make-believe. We are making the shit up.
Yeah.
That's what Paul Williams and my little buddy Paul is one of my best friends, and we always say this: "Can you believe it? We've had this whole life, these great lives, just by making shit up."
Yeah.
That's what we do. We just make shit up.
So the song actually never came true. Of course, the Eagles would break up near their peak, so they would never go down the charts. They would never relinquish the title of America's biggest band, really. New Kid in Town went to #1, so did Hotel California, the album, and the single made them even bigger. Of course, the band would get back together in 1994 and hit #1 in a new decade with Hell Freezes Over. We'll talk about that down the road. So thanks so much for watching. Leave us a comment about J.D. Souther and the Eagles. Check out his newest stuff as well. J.D. is amazing. He's got some great music. I'll link to it below. What are your memories of this song, of this time in music in the 70s? What do you think about New Kid in Town? Who do you think it's referencing? Of course, J.D. said that it wasn't anybody in particular, but some have speculated. Let's have a great discussion below. If you like our content, we invite you to subscribe below. We'd love to have you. Never know who we're gonna have on here, excuse me. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends.